The banking crisis. We will address tonight whether we're supposed to say Credit Suisse or Credit Suisse. Which is it? I know it's spelled Suisse, but I've heard people say Swiss, and I don't like saying Suisse, but some say Suisse. I don't know. Look, John Tobacco, he knows all of this stuff, the important stuff, and probably this too. It does seem to have stabilized somewhat. All right, more on that in a little bit. Meanwhile, the weakness shown by Joe Biden, the allies see it, our enemies see it, the American people see it. The weakness is so palpable, it is so un-American. You know, 51 years ago today, The Godfather premiered. Yep, with Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, and the rest, right? Do you remember how strong The Godfather was and how weak some of the people were in the neighborhood? Like that guy there who asked for a favor, he wanted something done, but The Godfather was offended that he never came to have a coffee or just to make nice. I didn't want any trouble. I just didn't want to get involved. This is the foreign policy, avoiding trouble, of the Biden administration.
Since the beginning of my administration, we seek competition, not conflict with China.
We're not seeking conflict with Russia.
We don't seek conflict. I've told them that we're looking for competition.
Incidents happen, and clearly we do not seek armed conflict with Russia.
We got it. But you know what? The conflict has come to us, whether we are seeking it or not. And what are we going to do about it? Apparently, thank you, sir. May I have another? The balloon, the China balloon. We just sat there and took it and only had polite words. And now this UAV, an American unmanned vehicle, shot down, pushed down, something happened to it by a MiG Russia fighter over the Black Sea. And we don't want any trouble here. Gobbledygook.
Two Russian jets dumped fuel on an unmanned U.S. MQ-9 aircraft conducting routine operations in international airspace.
Yeah, just like that. Russian jet just the technical details. No warning, no Russia, you are messing with the wrong country. Stop it right now or else. There is a time and a place where you gotta get tough. This administration doesn't understand that. The other guy, our guy, it was in his blood.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen.
Right? Right? I mean, this stuff actually works. And there's intellectual firepower behind this kind of statement delivered in this manner. More on that in a moment. But, I mean, just compare and contrast this to Joe.
Have relations now between the U.S. and China taken a big hit, frankly?
No.
How do you know?
I know. I talked to him.
You've talked to Xi Jinping?
Talked to Xi Jinping before. And our team talks to their people.
During this and since?
Yeah, after this. I haven't talked to them during this.
Oh.
But look, I mean, the idea of shooting down a balloon that's gathering information over America that makes relations worse. Look, I made it real clear to Xi Jinping that we're going to compete fully with China. But we're not looking for conflict, and that's been the case so far.
They're walking all over us. They're testing us, and we're failing the tests. Sailing that balloon all the way across the country, and nothing happens. Well, you know who noticed that? Putin. And now that UAV thing being dumped on, did he say? Gasoline, Russian fighters just dumping on and disrespecting our aircraft over the Black Sea. And you see these statements that are coming out from President Xi and others. They're talking about modernizing their military. They're talking about reunifying with Taiwan. This is bellicose, belligerent stuff. And we respond, thank you, sir. May I have another? It's astounding. Now, there are people out there who don't like Richard Nixon. Personally, I'm a fan. the late, great Richard Nixon. Even his enemies would say he was fantastic at foreign policy, an amazing strategic thinker. He would be horrified by what is happening right now. Have you ever heard of the madman theory? The madman theory is a political theory commonly associated with President Nixon's foreign policy. Nixon tried to make hostile communist nations think he was irrational and volatile. Now, he was not those things, but if your enemy thinks that, it can give you leverage. They can fear you, they will fear you, and you can use it to get things done. Your agenda, our agenda. Listen to this guy.
Nixon called it the madman theory. The idea that he would pretend that he hated communists so much that he would get angry and he would do anything to destroy communism and save South Vietnam. And so it was called the madman theory. So he liked to project this idea that he was mad and he would do anything to end the war. This led to one event that we're just finding out about now, at least recently, that Nixon ordered a nuclear worldwide alert. And it was secret until just a few years back when the documents came out.
And you know who was something of a pupil of President Nixon? President Trump. In fact, in the late 1970s, they were actually neighbors on the same block, East 65th Street. President Nixon was very impressed with Donald Trump. Does it make a bit more sense now when you see Donald Trump speaking that aggressively toward North Korea? There was a rationale, there was a strategy there. For Joe, the passive and weak Joe, what is the strategy? Could it be just not getting in trouble with the Chinese? Because they know so much about him and Hunter and the financial entanglements. Now, that is a real concern. The media never asked Joe about that. Why not? I mean, why not? Because their corporate overlords say, don't go there? How can he be in front of that many reporters and not get any questions about the laptop, not get any questions about, well, have you heard? First, James Comer, Republican of Kentucky, is the House Oversight Committee chairman. This guy's a heavyweight, all right? It's been around for a long time. He's no joke. And he is determined, and he has said publicly, that their investigators have found $3 million wired from a Chinese energy company to a Mr. Walker in the United States, an associate, a known associate of the Bidens, and that money was then transferred to the Biden family. $3 million transferred to the Biden family. This is a big, big, big deal. And once again, no one's talking about it, huh? No news. New York Times, no. You add this to 10% for the big guy. Remember, 10%, right? 10, hold 10 for the big guy. How about half of Hunter's pay, actually, according to the laptop, was going to Pops. I won't make you give me half your salary. What about Joe's tax returns in 2017? When, oh, by the way, that $3 million transfer was made. Joe, how much money? $11 million. Did he make $11 million from his vice presidential memoirs? None of this is of interest to the New York Times, the paper of record. And when the paper of record doesn't go there, you'll be surprised how many people in conservative media, they don't feel comfortable. The New York Times has got to give them cover. Look, I know about Joe Biden's $3 million. I know about Joe Biden's various homes. And there's no kind of accounting for all of the possessions that he's managed to acquire on a government salary all these years. And if I know that, you know who else knows that? President Xi knows that, Vladimir Putin knows that, and they can use this information potentially to control Joe Biden. That's the big concern here. It's not just gossip, all right? This is a matter of national security. Quite frankly, Joe came to power in an entirely different era. 1972, that's when he became a big shot. And in 1972, you could get away with a lot more than you can today, all right? The standards were a bit different. Watergate changed everything. I mean, look at this hot shot. Look at how he boasts.
As the youngest member of the Senate, the one, therefore, who may expect the longest career there. I wonder if you'd say to us, since it's clear that you're not corrupt and you got elected, why should people think that the system produces corrupt results when there you are?
Well, I'm not sure you should assume I'm not corrupt, but thank you for that, though.
What an interesting thing to say. What an odd thing to say. Don't assume I'm not corrupt. I will never make that mistake. Here's the thing. I know some things about Joe. You know some things about Joe. You know who knows about Joe? Our adversaries. It's funny. Sometimes the people in a country are the last to know. Did I ever tell you in the 1980s, I actually visited the Soviet Union? That's me in Red Square in 1985. It was still a communist country. And you know what I really wanted to do? I wanted to see Leonid Brezhnev's cars. Now, Leonid Brezhnev, he had been dead for about 3 years, but he was said to have a big museum full of cars because this guy was obsessed with cars. He was corrupt. We knew that in America, but over there, they looked at me like I had 10 heads. What are you talking about? He took the bus. He has no cars. I knew it. Our CIA knew it. The American media knew it, but the people over there had no idea. So, $3 million to Joe Biden. I know it. You know it. So many people in America don't know it. It didn't make the New York Times. It's crazy, right? Meanwhile, they get $3 million. It's not news. Donald Trump Jr. gets an email, and it's a DEFCON 5.
To many, the email trail on Trump Jr. proves his willingness to collude with Russia.
It suggests on its face a willingness to collude with Russia, a foreign adversary of the U.S.
There were these untoward contacts. There's a lot we don't know, but a lot that's very suspicious. We know that Donald Trump Jr. at the very least tried his damnedest to collude with the Russians.
Well, that's just an email from a guy, this fellow, Rob Goldstone, who I actually know. Nice guy. This is what happened. This is the collusion. He sent Donald Trump Jr. an email, and they all think that this is yet $3 million. It's just crazy. And the way they cover for Joe Biden is wild.
Do you have a crime that you think Hunter Biden committed? Because I've yet to see anybody explain it is not a crime to make money off your last name.
How about that? Bending over backwards. You know, number one, it's sleazy, big time, right? No skill, Biden family. What does Hunter bring to the table? What does Jim Biden bring to the table? That's wrong. We don't like that. You guys never even covered it. Now you're just telling us it's not illegal. And oh, by the way, it just might be illegal. We haven't gotten to the bottom of it yet. But did these guys doing all this business overseas with China, representing their interests? You know, Hunter introduced his father, the vice president at the time, to this guy, Lee, an energy company / Communist Party heavyweight in a hotel. And I mean, basically, you got to register as a foreign agent when you do this kind of stuff. You have to register as a foreign agent. And the Justice Department, they like to charge at least Republicans with this. Did you know this is how they got Paul Manafort, right? One of the things, he didn't register as a foreign agent. I mean, the big crime of his was, you know, he got close to Trump. How about Michael Flynn? That was something else. The whole not registering as a foreign agent for something with Turkey. I mean, these are trumped up charges for these guys. But given the scale and the money involved with China and on and on and on, this is, well, we got to get to the bottom of it. And it's just amazing that there is minimal public interest. It's also amazing that the world is not a different place after Tucker Carlson's reporting last week. You know, that 41,000 hours of footage. He did a great job presenting it to the people. We saw the Horns guy being facilitated by Capitol Hill police in his maneuverings around the Capitol. I mean, it's almost like they were working together. That is game-changing information that has been ignored. Conservative media as well. It's like it didn't even happen. Brian Sicknick, the cop, the Capitol Hill police officer, they said he was hit in the head with a fire extinguisher and, you know, killed by MAGA. He died of natural causes the next day. And on January 6th, here he is, alive and functioning, when they told us at this time he was already dying. He was already bleeding at the hands of MAGA terrorists. And you know what they did? They gave Brian Sicknick a state funeral, essentially. His ashes lying in state in the Capitol. You know who gets to lie in state in the Capitol? And this is nothing against Brian Sicknick. They exploited him. They used him. President Kennedy. That's an honor for this kind of occasion. A president in his prime cut down by an assassin. Or General MacArthur, after a lifetime of service, lie in state in the Capitol. President Reagan, beloved two-term president, one of the greatest ever, lying in state. Brian Sicknick, no. Someone who died on natural causes the day after, no. It was perverse what they did. So you have the Sicknick situation and the Horn situation. We've seen it. We know it. It exists. Where does it? If the New York Times doesn't say it's news, I mean, maybe it's not news. Is that their strategy? It reminds me of, people throw around 1984, George Orwell too much, but there's this. The most palpable facts can be denied or disregarded by the state. We can't let them deny this stuff. We can't disregard it, okay? Are you in this with me? I'll be right back.